Hello. Welcome to another recording of an article published on Interconnected.blog, which is the internet's only bilingual newsletter on the intersection of tech, business, geopolitics, and US-China relations. My name is Shawn Xu. I'm the author of the Interconnected newsletter. Well, mostly because today I'm actually going to be doing a narration of a guest contribution that we published a few months ago on the low-code, no-code landscape. This is part one of that article called Low-Code, No-Code Part 1, Use Cases and Landscape. The author is Shawn Xu. He is not related to me, even though we have the same last name, but Shawn is one of the early engineers at Ascend, got his master's in human-computer interaction at Carnegie Mellon, and also writes a very informative WeChat public account on all things SaaS called 硅谷成长攻略. So if you speak Chinese, go give Shawn's WeChat public account a follow as well. With that, let's get going on this narration. The low-code, no-code part 1 begins now. The low-code, no-code category of software products has been a hot, trendy area of VC investment, at least in Silicon Valley. This concept of low-code, no-code coincided, in some ways catalyzed, the rise of the so-called citizen developers. However, this umbrella term, low-code, no-code, especially the low-code part, remains confusing and often lumped together with developer tools and API products. In this part 1 of a 2-part series, we will explore the hypergrowth of low-code, no-code economy from the lens of an investor and provide a landscape in an attempt to organize this vast landscape. Note, you should not treat this post or any post on Interconnected as investment advice. Please do your own research. In part 2, I will look at the trends that are pushing low-code, no-code forward, share some product valuation heuristics, and discuss why we haven't seen significant low-code, no-code innovation in tech ecosystems outside of Silicon Valley, like China. Now let's do some definition. Modern software deployment largely follows a 6-stage life cycle. Each stage can be broken down further into smaller stages. For instance, testing alone may consist of unit tests, integration tests, end-to-end tests, accessibility tests, etc. The core definition of low-code, no-code is that low-code, no-code abstracts away one or more steps in the software development lifecycle. The most meaningful difference between low-code and no-code is the level and amount of abstraction. No-code is about empowerment, enabling users to create software they weren't capable of before. Low-code, on the other hand, is about freeing engineers from repeatedly writing low-impact code. Before diving into no-code and low-code separately, we should note that it's almost impossible to draw a clear line between the two concepts. Code level is a linear line rather than a set of 3 distinct buckets. To keep things clear, we categorize a product into either low-code or no-code based on its stated product mission and target users. Now let's do a landscape. With that broader definition in mind, I've composed the first 2021 low-code, no-code landscape, which contains currently 369 companies. Please go to the link to this post to check out the corresponding Airtable sheet and the high-resolution landscape graphic that Shawn has put together. Now let's break down low-code and no-code respectively in more detail. No-code. The level of abstraction of no-code products is so high that users can get started without any programming background. It's roughly divided into 2 categories, site builders and business automation. Site builders. This category is probably the most widely known no-code application. Products like WordPress and Ghost, which runs the Interconnected newsletter, bring about a new age where designing and building a simple website no longer requires formal programming training. In the past few years, we have seen new products emerge, setting their sights not only on simple graphical interfaces, but also all aspects of a complex application, front and back end logic, database, operation and maintenance, and other use cases, providing truly end-to-end solutions with no code. Among the new breed of site builders are some notable use case verticals. The first one is internal tooling. Today, if a company's finance team wants a customized expense report tooling, chances are that they can tailor-make one themselves. They might need some help from engineer colleagues to integrate with the company's authorization services, but the whole ideation to launch process now takes a fraction of time and cost thanks to no-code solutions, compared to either buying off-the-shelf solutions or dedicating an internal engineer team to build it. Airtable and Retool stands out as two of the best-known examples in the industry. Another category is e-commerce builders. It's hard to imagine how challenging it was just a decade ago to get your store online. Shopify came along and not only provided a no-code solution to build custom storefronts, but also bundled complete e-commerce backend and fulfillment processes such as shopping cart, checkout, payment, order management, and logistics management. 15 years after its founding, Shopify, like Amazon, has become a giant with its own complete ecosystem. Nevertheless, the e-commerce site builder space continues to be competitive and attract entrepreneurs. These newcomers aim to provide differentiated and specialized services for different verticals or different parts of the e-commerce experience, like warehouse management, pre-sales and after-sales service. There's a company called Volution that does that. Art transactions, there's a company called Big Cartel that does that. And extensive multilingual support. The company that does that is called PrestaShop. Another category I want to talk about is mobile app builders. Write once, write anywhere is the holy grail for cross-platform app building. This is still extremely challenging technically due to the distinct and ever-changing programming interfaces of iOS, Android, and the web. Products in this domain mostly adopt a hybrid model, that is, wrapping a web application with a native shell using tools like React Native. Popular offerings include Thunkable, Perry.io, Buildfire, and AppGyver. Another category we want to mention is rapid builders. While this category has some overlap with the previous ones, it deserves its own bucket because of its unique use case. We are entering an era that encourages personal identities and individual brands, and the rapid builders empower people and companies to express themselves more quickly. While some app builders become heavier and more powerful, others prefer a light touch approach. Apps like Kotica, Play, and Pineapple let users build mobile apps from an app. Products like Glide, Pori, and Softer make it easier, in fact insanely easier, to build an app for display and for viewing purposes. Point to a Google Sheet, pick out some sources of data, choose some style, and all of a sudden you have a mini app based on that data. Now let's talk about business automation, the other big low-code bucket. Companies love to have their processes interconnected. While site visitors fill out requests for demo forms, their records are synced automatically to Salesforce. When users submit a bug in the help forum, an issue is automatically created in Jira. IFTTT, or If This Then That, is one of the earliest products to provide no-code automation services. Back in 2012, cloud-based services were like remote islands, with little interfacing and interactions with other similar services. I was obsessed with IFTTT to build up my personal automation workflow. Liking a good article on Feedly would save it to both Dropbox and Evernote. Adding a new contact on my phone would immediately get synced to Google Contacts. In SaaS, products that provide similar services are called BPM, or Business Process Management. Compared to their consumer-facing counterparts like IFTTT, these services are more often used to connect various SaaS services. Zapier is perhaps the leader in this market, a unicorn with reportedly a 9-figure revenue level with only $2.6 million of venture funding raised. Similar to the site builders bucket, we're also seeing different verticals emerge within the business automation sector. Marketing automation. Marketing automation is a type of business automation often optimizing the sales pipeline, which describes the entire sales process from advertising to collecting business leads to closing deals. Typically, the higher up in the sales funnel, the noisier it gets. Deploying algorithms to triage the noise is a lot more cost-effective than hiring more people to sift through it all. Products like Funnel.io and ActiveCampaign can seamlessly connect to ad platforms such as Google and Facebook ads with a no-code interface that lets users define what to do under what situation. For example, if a site visitor downloaded the white paper or stayed for over 20 minutes on the website, automatically mark this person in Salesforce as a high priority business lead. Let's talk about chatbots, another category. Most messaging apps today have opened up their APIs to allow business users to form automated responses, aka chatbots. These chatbots also exist on web pages. The so-called famous intercom bubble comes to mind, or as phone operators. However, building a meaningful end-to-end chatbot is an extremely code-heavy project, conforming to APIs of different platforms, fetching customers' personal and order information, parsing and understanding the natural language questions, or forming a personalized response. Chatbot is probably the most heated space in the entire low-code, no-code landscape for two good reasons. One, businesses are more than willing to pay for ubiquitous chatbots, which can greatly scale up their pre- and post-sales activities. Two, progress made on machine learning and natural language processing has made end-user experience more human, quote-unquote, and less artificial. Drift and Chatbot.com are among the new wave of chatbot products that integrate easy-to-configure AI to help populate smarter and more human responses. Algorithm trading builders is another category that we want to talk about. When the United Airlines stock price rises, buy some Airbnb stock. This type of logic of algorithm-driven trading monitors certain trends in the market and executes trading strategies instantly. Local platforms such as Alpaca came around a few years ago, making it easy for developers to obtain market data and focus on developing and testing algorithms. However, the entry barrier is still high. You still need to know how to code. Now with the drag-and-drop UI of Streak, Tradetron, and Composer, which is in beta right now, anybody can come up with their own algorithm-based investment strategies to be executed automatically. Now let's talk about the components of a data pipeline, which is another category. Data visualization platforms like Tableau and Looker have come a long way to help users drive business insights without writing lengthy Excel scripts. Yet, they only make part of an end-to-end data process easy. Prior to visualization, analytics, and machine learning, data has to undergo a chain of steps including extraction, ingestion, cleaning, transformation, storage, and so on. To build these steps, a company had to hire and rely on seasoned engineers. This bottleneck made the lives of data consumers, from analysts to executives, just miserable. Thus, products like Fivetran and Trifecta came to the rescue, offering them self-serve experience for simpler data pipelines and offloading work from engineers to enable them to focus on more complex pipelines. Now let's break down the low-code landscape. As we defined above, low-code products free engineers from repeatedly writing code that either creates less value or is too time-consuming. These two categories make up the main use cases. Project scaffolding is number one. A new engineering project does not typically start with writing business logic right away, but requires a lot of so-called prep work, like configuring environment, setting up a test framework, hooking up CI/CD, so on and so forth. For larger teams with more established workflow, this typically follows some internal playbook, but for smaller teams with limited resources, the process could be daunting and error-prone. This is a common reinventing the wheel problem. Thus, a group of startups are tackling these repetitive and mundane tasks by packaging up and turning them into low-code SaaS solutions, like CircleCI's one-click deployment, WaveScript's cloud scripting environment, and Mabel's automatic testing platform. There are many other examples. Let's take CircleCI as an example. The work of sorting out build dependencies between services, chaining them up, supporting rollback and retries can keep a few well-paid engineers busy for weeks, if not longer. With CircleCI, the work is just providing a few declarative configuration files, and the platform handles the rest. We can find similar examples in the big data domain. For data scientists and analysts, they find value in conducting analysis and building models, not setting up the underlying infrastructural environment. Databricks found their sweet spot by offering a one-click cluster spin-up, dynamically scaling against workload and automatically shut down after inactivity. This type of low-code offering allows these data scientists and analysts to focus on the more value-add part of their work. Another category, we will call it new tech, small team. The notion of full-stack engineer is popular in Silicon Valley and increasingly in other tech hubs around the world. But in reality, no engineer is fully full stack. Every engineer has his or her own strengths and weaknesses. In a large company or team, the weaknesses can be patched up with enough resource allocation. In a small startup or team, it's much harder, so more low-code solutions are adopted to fill the gaps. A startup that's focused on developing a distributed system may have little UI experience. So to provide its customers with a polished dashboarding experience, they will adopt low-code products like Cube.js or Superset. Certain layers of the tech stack also tend to open up more low-code opportunities than others, especially if the pace of change is quick while the ramp-up time is quite long. Two that I'll mention are infrastructure/DevOps and data engineering. For both categories, there is no default architecture or ways to do things. Many different options and opinions exist in the market, and the learning curve is still quite steep. Now let's compare and contrast low-code versus API products. It's worth noting that while low-code and API products like Stripe, Twilio, etc. can help offload repetitive, low-value engineering workloads, they should not be conflated. From a product perspective, low-code differs from pure APIs in that it also provides an environment to execute the code, providing another layer of abstraction. Pure APIs, on the other hand, are integrated as one of many parts of a solution, allowing for higher flexibility than low-code. Local products also tend to have more pricing schemes and options. For example, by the number of seats, like WaveScript and CircleCI, by usage, like Databricks, or by features, like Replit. API services usually only charge by usage. Now, I hope this part 1 of our 2-part series on low-code, no-code, written by Shawn Xu, gives you a broad sense of why this area is so trendy lately, who the main startups are in the space, and the value they are providing, real or perceived, for the market. Now I hope you check out the video or the post on Interconnected.blog for part 2 of our exploration of low-code, no-code.